ready to explore the power of myth. Today we're diving deep into The Hero with a Thousand Faces. Not just a book about stories, this one. This is a guidebook by Joseph Campbell to the human experience itself.
Yeah, it's funny how we dismiss myths. Like, they're just these old stories, right? Fables, from a time gone by. But really, there's so much more.
Yeah.
They're like the language of the soul. They speak in symbols and archetypes.
When I hear archetypes, I immediately think of like the hero, the mentor,
Right.
the villain.
Exactly. Those classic figures, those patterns, you see them everywhere. But it's even deeper than that.
Okay.
Think about it, archetypes. They're like these universal patterns, recurring patterns. We see them in stories and myths across all these different cultures.
So we're talking about things that like speak to the core of human experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Like facing fear or striving for love or even seeking wisdom. And that's where Joseph Campbell comes in, right? He's the one who kind of cracked the code.
Let's get into that. So Campbell, he finds this hidden structure, this pattern. He calls it the hero's journey.
And it's everywhere, right?
Everywhere. Even if you've never even heard of Campbell, you know this pattern. It's like Star Wars. It's Harry Potter, the Wizard of Oz. It's that classic, like, ordinary person thrust into extraordinary circumstances.
And it's not just a Western thing. That's what's so amazing. Campbell found this pattern, like, echoed in myths and legends from all over the world, every corner of the globe.
Which says something, right? Like it's hardwired into us somehow.
It really does suggest something profoundly universal about this whole journey.
So how does it work? Give us the Campbell's Coles Notes version here.
Okay, so it always starts with the hero. Just, in their ordinary world, they're often kind of stuck, a little restless.
A little bit lost, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Then comes that call to adventure. Something shakes them out of that routine. Could be a challenge, an opportunity.
Okay.
Think about Luke Skywalker, right? He finds Princess Leia's message, or Dorothy getting swept up in that tornado.
And of course, there's always hesitation, right? The hero's not just going to jump in right away. They're not ready to leave their comfort zone.
Never.
Luke doesn't want to get mixed up in the rebellion. Dorothy just wants to go home.
Totally. There's that fear of the unknown. You're clinging to what's familiar. But then, this is important, a mentor appears.
Right. Someone to guide them, give them a little push.
Exactly. Obi-Wan Kenobi for Luke, Glinda the Good Witch for Dorothy. This mentor, they help the hero actually embrace the call and step into, the unknown.
That's when the adventure really begins. They cross the threshold, they leave their old world behind and venture into this new one. And it's not always a welcoming place, is it?
Oh, no. Often dangerous. Unfamiliar territory.
They encounter challenges, allies, enemies.
Right. And that's where they really have to confront their deepest fears.
It's like that feeling of being totally out of your depth, maybe starting a new job or moving to a new city, something like that.
Yes.
And Campbell, he calls this the belly of the whale, right?
He does, yeah.
Being swallowed whole by the unknown.
Exactly. And he uses the story of Jonah, right?
Yeah.
Jonah and the whale to kind of illustrate this. But it's more than just like the literal biblical story, right? Campbell argues that being swallowed by the whale, it's like this necessary descent into your unconscious. You're confronting your shadow self.
Wow, yeah. I never thought about Jonah's story that way. Like, it's about those times in life when you feel like you're drowning in the unknown.
And that's the beauty of these myths, right? These ancient stories. When you look at them through Campbell's lens, they offer these amazing, profound insights.
Into ourselves.
Into our own psychological and spiritual journeys. Exactly.
So the whale has spit us out. We're through the worst of it. What happens next?
Oh, there's still a lot to go on this journey. This is where things get really interesting, I think. Symbolically rich.
Okay, hit me with it.
Campbell, he talks about this encounter with the feminine archetype. He calls it the meeting with the goddess.
The goddess. See, now you're just talking Greek mythology to me.
Right, beautiful deities, Mount Olympus. But it's not always so literal.
Okay, so not a Tinder date then.
No. This is bigger. This is about the hero encountering powerful feminine energies.
Okay.
And that can be a lot of things. It could be a goddess, like Aphrodite, sure. But it could also be like nature's raw power or even that inspiring force of creativity,
Interesting.
Or even a confrontation with your own shadow self, right? Those hidden aspects of our personality, the challenging stuff.
The stuff we don't like to look at.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's internal and external at the same time, this meeting with the goddess.
Absolutely. And Campbell, he uses all these great examples. Remember Inanna, the Mesopotamian goddess? She descends to the underworld.
Right, ruled by her sister.
Yeah, yeah. The Queen of Death. It's a powerful example of this encounter, right? She's stripped bare, vulnerable. She has to confront, the darkest parts of herself, this whole cycle of death and rebirth.
Hung on a hook like a piece of meat, is how Campbell puts it.
That's it. But she comes out transformed, resurrected even. And that's the whole point. It's not about being defeated by those feminine energies.
But about...
About integrating them, finding balance. It's about, really acknowledging and embracing everything. The light, the shadow, all of it.
Okay. I like it. I like where this is going. Are there other examples of this that Campbell talks about?
Tons. Think about the Hindu goddess Kali. She's this fearsome warrior goddess, right? Skulls, weapons, but she's not just destructive. She represents that necessary force of creation.
Creation
And destruction. That constant cycle. Life, death, it governs the universe,
So even these scary figures, they're guiding the hero, ultimately.
In a way, yeah. It's about recognizing those forces inside ourselves. You acknowledge their power and then, integrate them. It's about wholeness.
Not just winning.
Right, right.
Okay. So how do we apply this meeting with the goddess to, normal life? I mean, not all of us are battling literal goddesses here.
Well, that's the thing about these patterns, right? They resonate across cultures, across time. Think about a time when you had to confront a really tough emotion, something deep down. Could be grief, anger, even intense joy.
Oh, yeah.
That process, right, of acknowledging it, really feeling it, and then integrating it. That's a reflection of this stage, in a way. Embracing it all, the full spectrum of being human,
It's a process.
It really is.
So it's not about literal gods and goddesses. It's about how we face those same forces within ourselves.
Exactly. And, Campbell, he actually says that understanding these patterns, understanding myth in general, it's crucial for us to really live a meaningful life.
I remember there's this part in the book, it really struck me. Campbell talks about meeting with survivors of the Columbine shooting.
Oh, wow.
And he talks about how even in that unimaginable tragedy, these survivors found solace in myths.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? Even facing that kind of darkness, these ancient stories about death and rebirth, facing your fears, finding redemption, they offer comfort.
Yeah.
A way to process something unthinkable.
It makes you realize how powerful stories are. They're not just entertainment. They're like these tools we use to navigate being human.
And these days,
Right.
with all this content, all this information overload, it's easy to lose sight of that.
It's like we're drowning in information, but we're starving for meaning.
Exactly. And I think that's where myth really comes in, It reminds us that we're part of this bigger story, this huge tapestry woven together by human experience.
I love that.
Yeah.
So if we're all living out our own personal myths, like Campbell says, how do we become better storytellers? How do we take control of the narrative?
That's the question, isn't it? I think it starts with awareness. Recognizing those patterns in our own lives, Paying attention to the stories we tell ourselves, the heroes we look up to, and asking ourselves, what myths really speak to me? What challenges am I called to face? What's waiting for me on the other side of my own personal abyss?
Those are some deep questions. I gotta say, this deep dive into the hero with 1,000 faces, it's given me a whole new perspective. Not just on mythology, but on life. It's not about reading about heroes. It's about recognizing that heroic journey in ourselves.
And as you continue on your own journey, don't forget, you have the power to choose your story. Embrace the challenges. Seek out your own wisdom.
Yes.
And never stop exploring your own unique myth.
That's beautiful. What an incredible journey this has been with you. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the hero with 1,000 faces. And remember, the hero's journey never really ends. There's always a new adventure waiting just around the corner.